Hello and welcome to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley, President of Coast to Coast Equities Incorporated and Chair of Construction Management and New School of Architecture and Design. Today we are talking about veterans transitioning from the military into the construction management field and what it takes. Why is that a good career? What does it take to do it? And is it a good idea for you? And I have two contributing experts today that know all about this stuff. Over here I have Jesse Dunton. Jesse Dunton is former U.S. Air Force and a construction manager just starting with University of Iowa. Is that correct? And
yes,
facilities.
Mm-hmm.
On this side we have Cornell Gassaway. Cornell Gassaway is a CMIT, construction manager in training, correct?
Yes, sir.
He is currently a field engineer with Balfour Beatty. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and he is nobody's ever former USMC, are they?
No.
You're USMC for life, right?
You're a veteran.
No, he's a veteran.
The USMC, like once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. It doesn't change. So.
Okay, so we're going to have a little conversation today about a little of their journey from the military through the training process and into professional construction management positions. So I'm going to start over here with Jesse. Jesse, you're Air Force. At the school that you attended, the school that also Cornell attended and I work at as well, primarily we get Marines and Navy in there. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while an Army, an Air Force, or a Coast Guard will stroll through. You're one of those Air Force that came in with us.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what you did in the Air Force, how you landed in San Diego.
Well, I was an engineering technician in the Air Force, which is essentially a construction manager. And in the Air Force, that means a little bit different than what you would find in the civilian world. I did focus more on like surveying, drafting, helped with civilian construction managers on job sites. But that's originally how I got interested in the field in the first place. But I married a Marine, and
okay.
So when I got out of the Air Force, that brought us to San Diego, which is why you have mostly Navy and Marines here. It's a location issue.
Right.
So
right.
There's not too many airmen running around here, but I started looking for a good school to go to with a strong construction management program, and here I am in New School. So.
And what led you to go to the Air Force in the first place?
Honestly, I wanted my school paid for.
Okay.
So there were other benefits too. I wanted to travel the world, meet new people, all those other cliche things that go with joining the military, but I wanted my GI Bill. So ultimately that's what I got out of it too.
It worked out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Cornell, you came by way of Marines, and you didn't start here in San Diego with the Marines, I don't think, did you? So.
No, I did not. Actually, my first duty station was in Okinawa, Japan.
Okay.
I was a heavy equipment operator, and I was with CLB 31. So our primary mission in CLB 31 was to provide humanitarian assistance to the Asian Pacific. So we'll go to countries like South Korea, Malaysia, Philippines, Australia, and just conduct random humanitarian missions. That was probably one of the biggest things that kind of actually got me into the CM field, because I seen that purpose that the humanitarian assistance work was giving me, making me really enjoy helping people and actually seeing what we can do with construction. So from there, I was like, okay, now that's something I can do. I definitely want to be in construction. I want to do construction. So what is it that I want to actually do in construction? So that was actually another whole process in itself that we can probably talk about later. So
okay. So you've been trained to build and destroy. That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and you landed at New School also. What brought you to New School?
So what brought me to New School was actually the environment. When I first walked around New School, was recruited to come towards New School, I seen how close everyone was, and it was also a small community. So from my military experience, I noticed that in small communities, people really thrive. It forces everyone to really get along together, and it just brings that cohesion of everyone together. So that was one of the biggest things. And then I also was able to actually realize the relationship between the instructors and the students. And that was another thing, because me as a learning person, I need that interactive experience. That's the best way I can learn. So.
Okay, great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the transition. Jesse, you come out of the Air Force, you're here in San Diego, you're married to a Marine, but you stayed reserve, is that right, for a
Yes.
while? Okay, and you still reserves?
I actually just finished my last drill weekend last weekend. So.
Okay, great, okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us about that transitioning time of coming out of the military and trying to move into the private sector.
I'm not gonna lie, it's very difficult. Everybody told me it would be tough, and I was like, oh, I got it all figured out. I'm gonna go to school, et cetera, et cetera. But it was a harder transition emotionally than I originally thought it would be, just because you go from that very structured environment to, oh my gosh, the world's now my oyster, I can do anything I want. And especially with the GI Bill, where you can literally, money is not an option or an issue, and you can go to any school you want. And so I was originally very overwhelmed, but it really helped me to, once I was here and I started shopping around, I was in the same situation as Cornell. I was looking for, obviously, a good educational environment, but I also wanted to find a community that I could fit into and people I could relate to. And I found that very quickly at New School, and there's, even though it's a small school, there's that strong veteran community, and immediately got a sense of belonging, so it really helped with the transition. So, and slowly, baby steps, I had my first internship and started kind of acclimating to that civilian lifestyle.
Okay, and so you got one foot in the military world still because your husband,
Yes.
and then one foot out because you are now transitioned almost fully into the civilian world here, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. And she mentioned that there's a kind of a group of veterans at the school. And did you find that also, Cornell, that you can kind of had some camaraderie with other veterans that were in the same place as you?
Oh yes, the camaraderie among the veterans, that was probably one of the best things that the school really had to offer, because veterans, like, not to differentiate ourselves from other people, but we have a different way of thinking and looking at things, and being around more people who think and kind of act in a similar way that you do, it allows you to actually be able to, express yourself a little bit more and be able to really be down to earth, comfortable, and be able to really grow, because that's what you really need to be able to spread out. So it was definitely a big thing.
And I've learned that being veterans, that means you're generally older than the normal student population. A student population that comes out of high school, they're 19 to 22 years old, and here you've had a whole life around the world doing some serious responsibility, and then you land in the same place as really kids. And then that's a little bit different. So
It is, and it also helps, just going back to the transition thing, just being, not only having that veteran status in common, but just being around a group of people that are also going through kind of the emotional turmoil that transition does bring. So it's just an all-around support system, both educationally and socially.
Okay, and now, why did you look to, you already mentioned why you kind of went towards construction management, but Cornell, why did you look towards construction management as an option? I know you said you did some of that in the military, you were kind of interested in it, but what drew you in to make that as a career choice and not just a job you did in the military?
So the job in the military, it's very structured. There's a certain way that things have to be, and it kind of hinders creativity just a little bit and doesn't allow you to really get to the full potential. So with the like transitioning out and actually doing it in the civilian world, it allows more creativity, because the only people that can really stop you from doing of course, the jurisdiction authorities of an area, right, but it's yourself. And that's what the biggest thing that I wanted. I wanted to be able to have control and be able to have a strong influence, and without having someone to tell me, hey, no, like, you can't do that. And it's because it was all about growth, really. I seen I can really grow more just by getting out. And
it's a challenging
Yes.
career. No two ways about that. So you've been working with Balfour Beatty for a while. Do you have a lot of downtime and time you're bored on the job?
Oh no, it's a busy job. That's another thing that I think I kind of fell more in love with the construction industry, because it's exactly the same compared to the military. Like everything is it's super high tempo. You're always on your toes. You're always moving. You actually have a purpose. You have a lot more say. You have a lot more control. Like
we're going to take a break real quick. We're going to come back and pick up where we left off. I don't mean to be rude on you. This is Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We're going to be right back. We're talking about veterans in construction.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. I am joined today by Jesse Dunton and by Cornell Gassaway, two veterans that have transitioned into professional construction management positions. And we're talking about that journey. And Cornell, when we went to the break, you were kind of explaining to us about your choice in going into construction management and the difference between doing the job in the military and having a career and more flexibility. So go ahead and finish up your thoughts on that.
Yes. So like I was saying it's actually very similar. Like the construction industry, very high tempo. The military industry, very high tempo. You're constantly always moving. You still have structure. Like even the camaraderie is crazy. It's almost exactly the same as being in the military. If anything, I would say that the camaraderie within the construction industry is just a little bit tighter than in the military industry. So.
Yeah, I've worked in the industry for many decades. What I learned is that every time you work on a project, you're in the club that did that project. And it's not just your company. There's all these trade contractors and consultants and designers that work on there. And that's always something you guys share together as you go on your career. That's always a connection. And I talk to people now that I didn't know were involved in projects I worked on because they maybe were drawing plans somewhere in a structural engineer's office back then. I wouldn't have met them. And we'd talk and they say, oh yeah, I worked on this project. I'm like, I did that project. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Jesse, you've done some in the industry practice already, getting used to this thing. So what kind of work have you done in the industry so far?
Well, technically, as I previously mentioned, I had some Air Force experience. So when I was stationed in South Korea, we were building a second runway on my base. I left before any of the major construction started, but I got to be a part of a lot of the preliminary steps, the surveying. So that was my first project. When I was in the United Kingdom, we were doing more taxiway projects, lots of civil work. So with my first internship after the Air Force, I was working on building student housing for UCSD. So that was my first vertical construction experience, which was really interesting. I had no idea how different it could be.
Two different worlds.
So yeah,
horizontal and vertical are very different.
Learned a lot during that summer internship. From there, I went to another company that was back to civil construction and more road work. And then my final internship was with Citi. So that was also really interesting because I got to see everything from the owner perspective. So I was much more involved in contractual processes and pre-construction design phases.
So at this point, the people building are working for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and that's good. And that's the thing about this industry. There's a lot of different facets to this deal.
Oh yeah.
As you mentioned, there's civil infrastructure projects, there's commercial vertical projects, there's residential projects, there's industrial type projects, there's all kinds of, even in certain sectors, there's marine projects, there's things that are water treatment plants, a lot of crazy stuff that goes on. Very different, and all those have their unique sets, little niches of people that work in those, and they don't necessarily cross over to a large degree. So what is the current job market out there? You're both recently coming out of your education and moving into entry-level positions. What's the job market like? Any trouble finding work?
Oh no, actually that was probably another thing that attracted me to New School because I was doing my research and I seen 100% job placement. Okay. So I was like, well, that definitely says where I'm going now.
Okay, so are you in that 100%?
Oh yes, most definitely.
Okay.
Just about almost everyone I know is in that 100%.
Okay, and you actually had a couple companies vying for you, kind of bidding for you. That's
yes.
right. Yeah. And Jesse, I know you did an internship, and then you're actually moving out of state,
Yes.
halfway across the country. Any problem finding work?
Not at all. In fact, the position that I'm beginning next month, I saw several months ago, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's my dream job. And I thought it's definitely too early to apply. I have several months left of school, but I just have to try and see. And I was hired very quickly, much to my surprise.
Okay.
So yes, I haven't had any problem. It was actually a lot smoother of a transition than I thought it would be, which initially going into construction management, that was one of the reasons, was the job security. I knew that there's a lot of work out there, but I was still blown away by how easy it was to move into the industry after education.
And is there any disadvantage to being a woman out there in the industry right now?
I would say no. I actually think it's an advantage because companies are looking to diversify, and it's fun being a woman in a man's world and kind of breaking down those walls that have been there previously. I've never had any sort of negative reaction. Everybody, is very respectful, and I think it's been great so far.
Okay, so you were in a man's world in the military and then moved over to another man's world in the
Yes.
in private industry. What kind of training or education did you need to get this kind of work?
I think historically, you didn't need an education. People just kind of moved into these management positions. But more recently, and on the job hunt, you're seeing more and more often that people want construction management specific degrees, in some cases just some type of engineering degree. But it's definitely becoming more common that they're looking for bachelor degrees.
Okay. Cornell, have you had that same type of experience in your job hunts? Are they looking for people that have the college education behind them?
Oh yes, they're most definitely looking for the people that have the college education behind them. The biggest thing is like the internships, but even with the internships, you have to be working towards a bachelor degree to even get the internship. So the bachelor, like going for the bachelor, is a huge part of it. So I agree.
Okay, and I know that the industry right now is very, very busy. We're in a boom right now, and I know that some companies are easing up on that a little bit because they just need bodies to do work. Yeah. But my experience, having been through a few of these cycles, because I'm old, because of that, I've learned that they ease up when it's a boom time, and then when things slow down again, that's the first people to go. And they have a hard time getting into other companies where the people with the degrees are more favored. Yeah. And so, I would caution people, that are out there thinking, well, I can get a job and this company said I don't need the degree. That may be good for now. But, as we know, this industry, the one thing guaranteed is it will go up and down. And those with the degrees and those that have the experience and education to come to the table usually make it through those down times pretty easily. So, okay. What kind of benefits or scholarships or financial help is there for military people trying to go to college after they leave the military? Well,
most people who've served honorably in the military, I can't recall the stipulations off the top of my head, but when they get out, they rate VA benefits, either the Montgomery GI Bill if they paid into that, or the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is what I use. I believe Cornell did as well.
Okay.
And those are excellent benefits because they give you that option to choose almost any program you want, almost any school you want, and they pay you a living stipend and all of your tuition. So they really make it impossible not to be successful in school if you're using it properly.
So you don't have to work two jobs.
Correct.
And take out a huge loan to go to school.
Yes. Between my housing allowance and the money I made at interning on the side, we've been more than comfortable. It has not been stressful as far as that work-school balance.
Okay, and Cornell, how's your experience been on that?
It's actually been pretty great. So I use post 9/11 GI Bill. Bills are always paid. I can definitely say that I did want to make extra money, so I did maintain the job as well throughout. And having the dual income, it's pretty nice. It really is. And I say I definitely enjoyed it.
Good. And I know that for people that come out of the military and maybe they've had some reason they couldn't continue that job in the military, there's other benefits available for retraining out there.
There's also like vocational rehab.
Complete free rides because the country owes them that now that they cannot do what they were trained to do in the military for a living, right? And I do want to stress to people, it's not a free education. How many years did you give to the military?
I had to get 4.
And how many years did you give?
I gave 4.
4, okay.
And typically, in order to achieve 100% GI Bill benefits, you have to serve 3 years on active orders, active duty.
So it's not free. That means you gave up 3 to 4 years of your life, or you could have been doing something else to earn that tuition to go to school. And I just want to
Correct.
stress that it's not a freebie. You did earn it, and that's an important distinction. It's not just a gift, right? You had to do the work up front and then get the benefit
Yes.
for it. And
Well
it's
worth it.
I think it's what a grateful nation owes their veterans. We're going to have to take another short break here. When we come back, we're going to wrap this conversation up about veterans transitioning into civilian careers, and particularly careers in construction management. I'm your host, Steve Matley. This is Building Solid Foundations. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Hi, welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we've been talking about veterans retraining into the private sector, specifically in professional construction management jobs. And my guests today have been Jessie Dunton. She is Air Force veteran, and Cornell Gasaway, a Marine veteran. And we've been talking about their journey of coming through the military, transitioning out, and then getting educated and moving into the construction field. So I want to ask, what kind of companies are out there looking for veterans?
So, for example, my company, Balfour Beatty, it's a general contractor, GC company, do K through 12s and a little bit of commercial. They did a luxury condominium project,
In my neighborhood, actually, yes.
Yes. And then you got other companies out there. I know a lot of veterans that have been hired by Hansel Phelps, Turner. There's quite a few. The list can go on. I mean, just about almost every company is out there looking for veterans. It's just the veteran work ethic. They want that work ethic, and you just got to give it to them.
Okay. And Jessie, you're actually not going to a general contractor or CM firm. You found a job in a different place.
That's correct. While Cornell is right, all of those big general contractors are, in my experience, definitely looking for veterans. I kind of shied away from the path that most of my peers are taking and looked in other places. So I got a job with the city, and they were definitely more interested based on my military background. And then now I'm going into work with the university, and that it definitely played a very heavy hand. I'm not the hiring person, but I know that they really liked my military experience. So I think, as Cornell said, being a veteran says a lot about most people's work ethics and just experience, and companies in general, regardless of what kind of company they are, really have a respect for that and look for that in the people that they're hiring. So.
And I agree with that. I advocate heavily at the school to go after and specifically recruit veterans, because my experience with veterans, both in the academics and once they get out into the field, is they're uniquely suited to the industry very well, meaning that they do have the work ethic. They understand discipline. You've been up early in the morning, especially Marines go on marches, 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever, right? Full gear on, right?
That's why I joined the Air Force.
Yes, there you go. Okay, but even in the Air Force, there's a boot camp you had to get through.
That's true.
Yeah, you know how to give orders, you know how to take orders.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to respect people even if you don't like people. You know how to work in a team even if those aren't the people you would invite home for Thanksgiving dinner, right? You know how to work with groups of people and how to work towards an objective much higher than any one individual. And that's what construction needs. I think it's extremely important in the industry. What is your best advice for a veteran that's thinking about coming out, well, not a veteran yet, a military person that's thinking about becoming a veteran in the very near future and transitioning, and they're probably all they know is the post office and peace officer work is kind of where a lot of them go. What would you tell them?
Don't sell yourself short. there's a lot of different opportunities and different avenues. Just because everyone follows that path because it's the easiest path, and as humans we tend to take the path of least resistance, there's always better things out there, and if you go out and actually explore, you might actually find something that you truly like and truly enjoy. That's what it was for me for the construction management program. I'm not saying that someone has to go directly into construction management, but I think it's a great fit for any military personnel that's coming out of the military. It's so similar. It's very similar.
Jesse?
Cornell pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. There's nothing wrong with going into law enforcement or
there's not.
government
It's
work.
an honorable profession, yes.
Absolutely. But I do agree that a lot of people go that route just because it does feel safe. It's a smooth transition typically leaving the military. But as Cornell said, don't sell yourself short. There are so many amazing opportunities out there for veterans, and as we just talked, a lot of companies, not just construction companies, are looking for veterans and looking for those work ethics and that military background. So put yourself out there, explore what you're interested in. Obviously, I'm biased, but I also think construction is a fabulous route to take. But the world is your oyster.
How does your compensation compare to other peers that you may know that are just entry level coming out of college? What do you think?
For them,
that are non-construction people.
non-construction, it comes down to like, they're like, wow, you're making that much coming out of school? I'm like, yeah. It was like, maybe I went to the school for the wrong degree. So
I was told that I was making more as an intern than a lot of people were in their full-time position, so that speaks a lot right there.
Yeah.
But the compensation is excellent, and I am not complaining.
Yeah, and that's starting. And there's no ceiling on this deal if you work your way up.
Yes.
So we're going to have to wrap this conversation up. I want to thank our two expert contributors today, Jesse Dunton, former U.S. Air Force, and new facilities manager. Is that the position? Or
Construction project specialist in the design and construction department
for University of Iowa. Fantastic. And Cornell Gassaway, veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and a field engineer with Balfour Beatty.
Yes,
and you're moving full-time after graduation.
oh yes,
okay.
July 8th.
So we're going to wrap this show up. I want to thank all the guests or the audience for joining us today. If you have any interest in this, do your research, Google it, find out what's out there, and don't sell yourself short. There's a lot of options out there, and if you're coming out of the military, you don't want to be one of those people that doesn't have a plan. Make a plan before you leave and follow that plan. I'm your host, Steve Matley. This has been Building Solid Foundations. We'll see you next week.